Hey everyone. My name is Stan and I'm the CEO of Runecast. Just before we start, let me ask you how many of you have heard about Runecast? To raise your hands. Wow, okay. I see more and more people as I go to these conferences, so I'm really happy. How many of you have tried it, actually? Okay, awesome. So we're going to have a demo today. You're going to see how it looks like. You can try it yourself later on. But first, a few words about myself. I'm one of the founders. So I would really like to tell you the story why we decided to develop Runecast. I'm VCDX number 74 and VCI, vExpert. I used to work for IBM for many years, so I'm also a co-author of a couple of IBM Red books related to VMware. And together with my co-founders, we've been living and breathing VMware for many years. We have actually created a VMware Center of Excellence inside of IBM, so we were supporting a lot of different VMware customers of IBM throughout the whole EMEA region. And day after day, month after month, we were facing issues on vSphere, and some of them we just could not avoid. Some of them really came as a surprise. For example, some purple screen of death, or some other bugs that came out of nowhere. And it was really hard to, or basically virtually impossible to protect the environments from those issues that are documented in the knowledge base. And I'll tell you the story of one particular KB that in fact triggered the idea of the creation of Runecast Analyzer. This is the KB over here. Some of you might recognize it. It's related to wrong configuration of the VMFS heap size of the ESXi hosts. So we had that on one customer. Due to wrong configuration of the VMFS heap size, VMware HA did not work properly. So one of the hosts failed, and HA could not restart the virtual machines on the surviving host, which caused a really big panic for that specific customer, and they started restarting the rest of the ESXi host because they didn't know what's going on. So there was a service impact that continued for almost 2 days until we found the root cause. And the root cause was what's described in this KB article. We thought, okay, we could have prevented this if we knew this information in advance and maybe manually checked all the things that need to be checked: the VMFS heap size, the ESXi host build number, and version. Once the management found out about this, and of course there was a huge problem and huge business impact for that customer, they asked us to check manually all the other customers if they're at risk from this issue in this KB. And that's one single knowledge base article out of over 30,000. So we thought that it's impossible for any administrator, no matter how good they are and how much experience they have, to really protect their environment from those seemingly undiagnosable issues, and that are already documented publicly. So you have the information already out there, but you're using it only reactively, only after the problem happens. So this is the main thing that we decided to solve with Runecast Analyzer. Along the way, we noticed other things that we were doing in a non-optimal way in vSphere operations. For example, we were doing the security health checks mostly manually. We were not using best practices, or many customers were not aligned with VMware best practices. And also, we were collecting all the logs from the ESXi hosts, but they were practically unusable. We were storing them in a central syslog server, but anytime we had to find some valuable information from those logs, it was really hard to find anything useful, actually. So we were really losing a lot of time in troubleshooting. And one day we decided to just go for it and to develop Runecast Analyzer, which is using several sources of truth to analyze your vSphere environment and to discover these potential issues. The sources of truth are mainly the VMware knowledge base, which is getting updated continuously, vSphere best practices, and also the security hardening guides. So those spreadsheets that VMware is releasing with every version of vSphere from 5.0, 5.1, all the way to 6.5 are usually the base for the security policy of many customers. And we use all of this information to analyze the configuration and the logs of the vSphere environment and to discover potential gaps, vulnerabilities, and problems. Actually, there's a hidden fourth source of truth that we're using as well, and this is we're monitoring social media because some of the problems, before they're actually documented in the knowledge base, they first emerge in popular forums or blog articles, and maybe a month later they will go into the knowledge base. But we want to catch them in advance. So if we see a big problem that's documented in a blog article, for example, and it became popular also on Twitter, many people are experiencing the problem, we validate it and we add it also in the product. The product comes as an OVA appliance. It's already pre-installed, pre-configured, so it literally takes you minutes to deploy it and to start using it and already get the value out of it. It's running fully on-prem, so it's just a quick architectural diagram showing that it's normally deployed in your company network. It can work in completely offline mode. So it doesn't require connection over to the internet. Only when you're downloading the new updates, you can connect it to our central repository so that it can update itself with the latest features or the latest KB definitions. But you can also use the offline update option. So as an admin, you can just download an ISO file from the central repository, attach it to the Runecast Analyzer appliance, which is just a single virtual machine, and use the standard VMware interface that you're familiar with to do the update. So Runecast Analyzer collects logs mainly from vCenter. It works with multiple vCenters as well. So if you have 10 or 20 vCenters in your environment, that's not a problem. You just need one single appliance, and you can connect it to all of them. Most of the information it's getting from vCenter. Most of the configuration, some of it gets from the ESXi hosts. So we need information also like hardware details, CPU models, firmware levels. This is the kind of info which is not stored in vCenter, and we're getting it directly from the hosts through CIM. And also we get the ESXi logs directly from the hosts via syslog. We have been on the market for over 2 years now, and we have customers from many different verticals out there, like telcos like Verizon Wireless or cloud hosting providers like Telit. We even have casinos, basically, or universities. Anybody that is using vSphere and has a critical vSphere environment, they need to protect it somehow. And currently, Runecast is the only product on the market that offers this KB correlation and can help you increase your availability in a unique way, basically by discovering these potential issues. One customer that we have for a couple of years is German Aerospace, for example. So one of the things that I wanted to mention, they have really cool space projects. So they're, for example, growing food in space. They have been using Runecast for 2 years, and they're protecting their whole environment. And it's really critical for them to keep very high level of availability in their environment. And they've been relying on Runecast to do so. And speaking of customers that we have on our batch, one of the latest ones is ONI. And I have here a representative of ONI, Tony, if you could come here on stage. So I'd let you, maybe if you could, hi. If you could tell a few words about ONI, what's your business about, and why did you decide to choose Runecast?
So if we start at the beginning with ONI. ONI has been a company that's been in existence for 25 years. Started off as a Cisco systems integrator. From there, we've built out data center locations. So for the last 6 years, 10 months, we've had 100% uptime on our colo facilities. Part of the growth of that development has been integrating IaaS, DRaaS, BaaS services. So we're now offering those out to customers as a platform rather than just a hosting facility. We've got a business message which is business assured with our 100% uptime. That's very easy to do with the networking, power, cooling elements of it. But when we're looking at software, we then need something to monitor the environment. So that's where Runecast has come in. So it enables us to scan our hypervisors to make sure that our environment is all up to date with best practice, that we're meeting all the knowledge base articles, and that we minimise any chance of downtime and mitigate that risk, because to us that would cost us 25% of any value that we make. So that's why we've teamed with Runecast. It's been a very recent proposition that we've brought in. We've looked at it for, I think it's 2 or 3 months that we've had it running in the environment, and we've recently signed the deal on that.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Tony. Thanks, Tony. And now I think it's very valuable for you guys to see the product, so I tried to minimize also the slides before. I think you get what the product does, so let's take a look at it. And I'm happy also to welcome on stage my colleague Warren, who developed part of the product, so he's going to show his baby right now. Warren, welcome on stage.
Can you hear me all right, this microphone? Great. Okay, guys. Yeah, I've sort of been working in defence for the last sort of 8 years, and as part of that we had to build security critical, highly available, resilient, high performant data centres, and during that process you find that there are certain ways in which issues occur, there are certain ways in which you identify them and resolve them, and we found, as equivalent to Stan's experience, that 90% of the time you're really looking for that KB article to give you the resolution to your particular problem. And also you want, obviously, to understand your data centre's compliant, best practice in security hardening. So when I saw this product, I thought, wow, it's amazing. I could use my development skills with these guys and produce something that's good. If I just come over, we sort of roll our sleeves up and have a look at the product in the flesh.
1 second.
You all right?
Yeah, just a second, because it's still showing that one.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. Okay. So this is sort of the landing pad when you log into Runecast Appliance from any browser. It's a standard sort of looking dashboard, but what it really does is give you Runecast's sort of appraisal of your data center estate in terms of some real key metrics, which are particularly important from a management operations perspective. So you can see from here, 17 critical issues identified, 43 major, 104 medium. This is looking at proportionality of objects within your data center with and without issues. And then there's some sort of headline stats here in terms of number of KBs found in the logs, KBs which are specifically applicable to your configuration, and your level of security compliance overall and best practice adoption. So there's sort of high-level metrics there. Just to look at on really the anatomy of the product in terms of its functionality. You've got 2 key areas, the configuration analysis and the log analysis there. The configuration analysis is going out through the vSphere APIs, taking a snapshot of your vCenter or vCenters, correlating them back to a codified set of rules which exist in the repository, represent the important points of truth that we've got there with the KB's best practice and security hardening profiles. And then it generates out from you a list of vulnerabilities, essentially, in your data center and issues that you can attend to. And it will also give you the materials needed to remediate those, but I'll show you that in a sec. On the log analysis side, what's happening is the Runecast Analyzer is sat working as a syslog server, and it's listening for known problematic patterns which have been reported in the KBs. So, if you're digging around in log files, you're looking for a pattern, we've all been there. Basically, you try and Google it, hope you're going to hit the jackpot, get the KB article. Well, Runecast's doing that work for you. It's listening in real time and identifying where you're exposed from those known problems. So, yeah, it's kind of a zero learning curve product. All the intelligence is going on in the background. We've got, as Stan mentioned, I'll just briefly say, we support multiple vCenter architecture. So in this case, you've got 2 vCenters that I can't actually quite see at the bottom of the screen there for some reason. Oh, great. Let's log back in. Quite sure I can't get down to those. Oh, there we go. Keyboard always helps. Yeah, so that's 2 vCenters. You can drill specifically into a single vCenter, and then this is just a dashboard view, and that will give you sort of more detailed information. So, for example, it's a really small environment here, 1 vCenter with 3 hosts. Runecast Analyzer has performed 10,000 checks in that environment, and the reason for that is like one of the real powerful elements of the product is it's not just looking at specific configuration on single components. It's also looking at the combinations of components throughout the stack. So, you know, it might be your hypervisor, it might be an HBA driver in there, chipset, it might be a particular VMOS type, particular VNIC type. All of that combination leads to your vulnerability and being exposed to an issue that's been reported. So Runecast, you know, will search in for that, and to look for that manually and continuously would be an absolute nightmare in a dynamic environment. So if we look at, so Runecast has generated the issue list. So you can see here, it's surveyed the estate and said, right, here's your vulnerabilities. So the first issue here, it will categorize by, well, for each issue, it will categorize by severity, the source, you know, whether it's a KB, best practice or security hardening issue you need to attend to, the layer in the stack. So, I mean, basically you can filter by any of these. Which design quality it affects. So you might only be interested in looking at performance diagnostics, for example, at the moment. It will allow you to filter on that. The number of objects in the data center that are affected by the vulnerability or exposed to the vulnerability. So you can, you know, search and sort on that, get your highest offenders at the top. I'll go back. So yeah, basically you can then sort of read down descriptions of these, and then you can pick out, you know, particular KBs from that. So if I go back to my all vCenter view, let's pick one out here. So we've got the top critical issue here. So this is NESXi 6 Update 2, so there's a PSOD here. So there's potential outage and downtime threat, obviously. If you open that up, it will tell you what the problem is. So, for example, you know, we've just seen that's PSOD. It will also tell you, within your on-premise data center, so you don't even need to go out into the internet for this, it's actually embedded in there, the KB article, which I'll probably need to key down, and the resolution. So it's doing the root cause analysis for you, it's finding the solution for it and presenting the resources from VMware of how to resolve that back into the interface before, you know, the problem's actually manifested itself. If I just scroll back up. Yeah, so that's telling you what the problem is, why it's occurred, how to resolve it, and it'll also tell you where it is. So if you look in the findings here, that will drill down into your specific objects in the data center that are affected. It will also tell you what checks were performed in order to reach this conclusion. So in this example, you know, there are multiple elements within the stack which led to the conclusion this issue is actually affecting you or could affect you. Okay, there's another way in which you can view it in terms of from the interface. If you want a sort of hierarchical top-down look at your environment, we've also got the ability to have an inventory view, so you can see, you know, the structure of your data center, and you can drill down into specific areas and then filter back to return the results for that. So, like, we wanted to look at that specific host there. These are the issues relevant to that specific host. Recently, this year, the team sort of developed, wanted to integrate this with the VMware management stack. So we developed a hybrid mode web client plugin, works in H5 and Flex from version 6 onwards. So to have a quick look at that, this is one of our new features. Go in here. So there's a plugin installed. Let's pick out a specific host there. So in summary view, we'll give you, if I can just wrestle with this interface a minute, it will give you a summarization of the findings for Runecast and the level of criticality of the issues. But probably most importantly, in the monitor view, it will report back to you which issues are relevant for that particular object. It's quite interesting to look because, you know, if your standard sort of vSphere vCenter implementation, If you look at all issues that are relevant for that host, there are actually none reported. If you look at the Runecast issues, it's giving you where you're exposed to KB articles, where you're violating VMware best practice recommendations, and where you're violating security recommendations. So I think that's quite an important element of the product. You can also get a view which is similar to the issues view that I showed you before. So overall for the vCenter here, you've got your standard filtering ability there. You can filter on words as well. So say if you want to look at Windows, for example, probably you're familiar with problems in that area, then you can do that. And you can also, from within the web client interface, perform scans back against the Runecast Analyzer. So within there, you could see what the problem is, do a reconfiguration, perform a scan to clear it down. So that's a way in which you can see the product being used. So if I go back in to the Runecast Analyzer itself, if we just move, I'll just briefly say here. So the KBs, the best practices we have here. This is a subset of the issues list, but it's providing back kind of an audit result in terms of pass-fail against these particular recommendations. We've also got that for security hardening in terms of VMware guidelines, and we've also got a profile there for DSSTIG 6, which is a really sort of military-grade way in which you can secure your data center, and you can choose to select that on or off. We're also introducing PCI, DSS, and HIPAA shortly, so we're looking to extend those profiles so you can selectively apply them for your environment and get reports based on those. One other thing I should mention here, we'll go back to best practice, probably a good example. Basically, we recognise, from experience, that you don't want to be bombarded with loads of issues when they're not actually relevant, because they're perfectly legitimate reasons and requirements from your workload to why you might not want to adhere to a best practice. For example, kind of classic example is a high-performance compute cluster, where you might want to disable hyperthreading, whereas it's a standard, VMware recommendation to enable it. So you don't want to be warned every time for a particular cluster if it's if hyperthreading isn't enabled for it. So if I just pull that one out, there's one there. So you've got the ability in here to set up filters which will suppress that information in kind of a highly granular way. So it might be that here, this specific cluster is HPC. So I want to basically select that. You can select it at a host level, you can select it at a VM level even, and then you type in the filter here, and that will mean every time the Runecast Analyzer runs, it won't report that problem for that. So you can tailor it to your own requirements. We've also got, nip up here, in the settings view, for that filtering, we've got a nice sort of global dashboard here where you can administer all of that to tailor it to your requirements. So if I come back, so next thing, if we look at the log analysis. So as I said before, basically we'll catch issues, catch logs coming through, listen for errors that are in there, and report them back to you. The results of that are reported in a very similar way to the configuration analysis. So these vulnerabilities are here. You can drill down into those. If you drill down in, we'll get the KB article. We'll get the description as before, and the findings in terms of the relevant components that are affected, and also the specific log messages that went together to raise that alert in the Runecast Analyzer. And we've also got an additional feature here which allows you to sort of do root cause analysis on the logs just for listening to keywords. That provides sort of a in-your-face, quite simplistic trend analysis of when you've seen known keywords which are problematic. And you can perform a drill down in here, and you can sort of zoom into that information and out again. So that's sort of kind of an intelligent way in which you can mine your logs in advance rather than having to search into them retrospectively. and you can configure that to your own needs. But really, the power of the product, as I say, is in leveraging the information that's there, in the KBs, and also, from the security hardening guides and the best practices. I mean, one other feature I actually probably would have a look at the moment, because this is something we've recently introduced, and it gives, we think, a lot of potential to extend the product, and a lot of our customers are really interested in using this, because that we've been developing a Vro plugin, for example, which would allow you to use the API. I'll show you now. So we've got a RESTful API to pull data from the Runecast Analyzer and orchestrate workflows to do automated remediation for you. So that's one of the use cases for this API. I'll quickly just jump in there.
Does that generate any code, or just generates?
It's the API.
Yeah, for remediation.
The orchestrator. So we're creating orchestrator at the moment. So it's V1 really, but basically we'll be creating packages to remediate individual KBs, and that will generate code that will be filled with variables that will be specific to your environment. You could use PowerCLI or PowerShell as a client to access the REST API and instigate the actions. Really the full range of functionality of Runecast is exposed out through these API endpoints. You can see here in sort of Swagger format, here's some GET requests that you can pull back issues, and it'll bring them back in, in JSON format. So there's an example there. A lot of customers sort of think that's going to be useful, and you could integrate it with a ticketing system, for example. So you've got new issues coming in, you want to put it into your ticketing system. When it's been done, push it back, it's been remediated. And you'll see, read across in the Runecast Analyzer, in your ticketing system, and also in the vSphere client. So we've got that sort of consistent way in which the environment's being cleansed in a continuous way. A couple of the other features, just grab up here. Yeah, you can set up, automatic scheduling, so you can have it running in the background at whatever sort of periodicity you like. So that's running there, so you can sort of update it every hour if you like to keep it up to date, as well as running your manual scans. You can set alerts so that you can send emails out, and there's a nice email which consolidates the finding of the analyzer, and it's quite high level in terms of the reports. And the metrics there, similar to the dashboard, but also some lower level stuff about the highest offenders. So you could use that, for management to keep them informed. Just as mentioned previously, your security compliance, you can turn that off and on in here. But I think the real beauty of the product is that the intelligence is really all going on in the background, performing a massive number of checks and analysis for your specific environment against those repositories of information which we know to be extremely valuable, and sort of serving it up in an easily digestible way, and a way that can also be consumed by other applications. I think that's probably enough coverage for now, but come and see us at the booth and we can show you in more detail the actual the product.
Thanks, Warren.
Thank you.